Good day and welcome to another live stream of the How We Got Here Genealogy Happy Hour. I'm Brian Nash here, your host, and I want to welcome everybody who's watching live. If you're watching on the replay, let me know. Just when you're watching on the replay, if you could just put a comment and put team replay, that would be great. So for those of you who are new to the Genealogy Happy Hour, sometimes when I come on, I'll have a specific topic to discuss, and other times it'll be just more of a general discussion about genealogy. So I wanted to, like I said, just welcome everybody here. It's a little later than my normal time in a different day. I usually do this at on Wednesdays at approximately 7 p.m. Atlantic, which is 6 p.m. Eastern. Going a little later today just because I had an appointment yesterday at my normal time, and from looking at my analytics, I noticed that on Facebook, the time when most of my followers are there is 10 p.m. on Thursdays. So I'm hoping I might be able to catch a little more people on Facebook. So, like I said, welcome, and let's get rolling. And so tonight, I want to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing and what I'm enjoying tonight for this happy hour. So for this happy hour, I'm enjoying a nice bottle of No Boats on Sunday, Nova Scotia pear cider. It's really good. And as with every happy hour, you know that every happy hour there is well, there's going to be some fun, some music, some drink. Okay, so with that, try to keep to a minimum. It's a nice large bottle. Should last me more than the time of this live stream. So, like I said, with that, let's get to it and let's start talking genealogy. Okay, I'm just trying to rearrange a few things here. Let you know a few things that are going on with me, and as far as it goes, I'm going to be hopefully very soon putting out the second part to my video on the crofters of Lorgill and what happened to them. If you've never heard of them or don't know about them, I do have a video. It's basically what happened. They were part of the Scottish clearances. Basically they were forced to leave their tiny community of Lorgill or Lorcal on the Isle of Skye, and they were supposed to be boarding a ship on August 4th, 1830, bound for Nova Scotia. There's records of them leaving the community and going to walking 8 miles away to the port. There's a record of the ship they were going on and the captain, but the people of the Isle of Skye never heard of them again. And there's no records to be found that I've been able to find, and others suggesting there no passenger records or records showing that they landed in Nova Scotia. I did find records of the same ship captain about 10 years later on another voyage from the Isle of Skye going down to Australia. So I know that the ship was not wrecked. And I've been following some leads and through history, doing a little bit of detective work, and I have a slight update that will lead me to more questions, actually. But as I start to develop the answers. So I've been working on that, getting some research done. Just restrung my banjo this week. I know you're not going to hear me play it. I don't want to torture you. But the other thing I've been doing that's really exciting for me is I've been working on my website. Still a work in progress, but it's a definite big revamp. And all my podcasts should be uploaded. Hopefully, I'm hoping by the end of the day tomorrow. That should be updated, and then I'll be adding some new content to that as well. So let's get to it and let's get cracking. We're going to go back to the basics today, and I'm just going to go over some real basic things in starting your family tree, and some things that often people miss, or they often miss them because when they're happening or when it could happen, people aren't necessarily thinking at that point in their life about their family history. And the big thing is I want to talk about it. The first thing is just talking to your relatives. If you're lucky enough to still have grandparents alive, and if you're super lucky to have a great grandparent alive, don't waste the time that you have with them right now. And this goes for your parents as well. That time is precious. And as a family historian, that time can be well spent finding out about your family. And I know often people don't know how to approach their grandparents, parents, especially if there's somebody who maybe is not as interested in genealogy or wanting to know the family history. So how do you approach them? What do you talk about them? One of the things that people do love to do is remember and reminisce about things in the past. So I always suggest, you go prepared, go with the information that you know already yourself. So if you know parents, grandparents, great grandparents, the names of those people, or even where they're from, locations, etc. Get that information. Know your uncles and your aunts. Your granduncles and grandaunts, if you know them, have that information, because it really helps make the conversation be casual. So what I would recommend is, when you do it, bring your phone. It's really all you need. It's a great device. It has most most smartphones, whether it be Android or an iPhone. I prefer Android myself. Have really decent cameras and good audio recording. You could also use a laptop if you have one with a microphone. If you can, and you can always purchase a couple little lapel mics. I've gotten them fairly reasonable on Amazon for a set that does two, which you can use, plug right into your phone for recording the audio. Or you can get a wireless mic, but that's really more if there's just one of you. Because you want to get that recording partially so you can engage in conversation and not having to be worrying about writing everything down. So let's start with the simple things. Ask them, what grandma or grandpa or whoever you're talking to, what's your earliest childhood memory? Get them talking about that. Get them talking about growing up. Get them talking about their brothers and sisters, your granduncles and grandaunts, your uncles and your aunts. And then start asking them. So you were born in whatever community they were born in, or if you don't ask them, so where were you born, Grandma? Then ask, how long did you live there? Or were your parents from there? Had they lived there all their life? That will answer a lot of questions for you. You can then begin to piece together a little bit of the backstory and the history as far as movement within your family. When they start talking about their parents, and get them talking about their parents. So ask them, what did your father do? What kind of job did he have? Was that a common job? Was in whatever community you're from? Did he do that all his life? How long did he do it? When did he retire? Ask about their things like, when you were growing up, did you guys go to church? What church was it? That's really important. That's a really important thing, because church records are some of the best records you can find. And if you can begin to piece the information about what churches your ancestors, so even the close ones, went to, it'll help you be able to find some records even beyond that, because that can lead to questions. Well, how long did your family go to that church? Were you baptized in that church? Were your parents married? Where were your parents married? Did your mom and dad ever tell you how they met? Oh, okay. What did your grandfather do? What the same sort of questions you start asking that, and where was he from? Did he always live there? And then when you find out things like, oh, he moved here from here from a different city, different province, different state, different country, you can start asking questions like, is that where he met Grandma, or was Grandma already here? Or is that where he met your grandma, or was your grandmother already here? Start asking those questions. Ask, did you ever meet any of your great grandparents? What were their names? can you tell me a little bit about what do you remember about them? Did your grandfather ever talk to you about his childhood? What he did? Um, what experiences he had? These are some of the basic questions that get a conversation rolling. Remember, you'll be using your records that you've developed to get the genealogical facts, and often people just get too stuck on the fact and on the story. Facts will only tell you so much. They will tell you the events that happen and the places they happen, but won't tell you the actual experiences that happened. You know, ask your grandparents about the favorite toy. What type of toys did you have to play with when you were growing up? What did you do for fun? What kind of games did you play? Get talking if they're talking about somebody in their family that had was in the military and was in the war. Ask about that. Ask what questions. At this point, it would be, for most people, would be their, if they were in the war, it would be their parent or grandparent, just because of the age that you would have been depending in World War II. If you're elsewhere in the United States or even Canada, if they were in the Korean War, or in the United States, if they were in the Vietnam War, that you might be able to get some information from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So it's important to ask those questions, get those details, get what you can, get about talking with your parents and grandparents for family history is about the stories, about filling out the details of the facts that you already have, or getting that information that will lead you to find the facts that, when you're talking about places and times, it will kind of, like I said, in churches and stuff, it will lead you to clues where you might be able to find the records that you're looking for, whether they're being marriage, baptism, birth records, and death records. A really important way to approach it too is when you know something happened, but you're not sure of the dates. Like, you might know your grandparents' birth date, and they might know their parents' birth date, but there's other things that they might not be able to, to tell you about. If you ask them, well, what year did your grandfather emigrate from England to Canada? They might not. Your parent, or the person you're talking to, might not know that information, but they might know. You might be able to ask, "Well, did he come over as a child with his parents? Did he come over as a young man? Was he already married? What did he tell you about his experience? Did he come over on boat? Did he fly over? Depending on what year it might be. Did he ever talk about his experience on the ship coming over? Those, again, ways to place it. I find it's really helpful to not ask dates, but ask them, do you remember what age you were when this happened? Like I said, or your grandparents or your grandparent, don't ask them, well, what year did that happen? What year did it, but they might not know, but you could ask, oh, did grandpa ever tell you how old did your grandpa ever tell you how old his that he and his wife were when they got married? How much older was he? Or, oh, was he older than her? Do you know how many years older? Those things will clue you in, because maybe you'll find his birth records, but not the person you're talking to's grandmother's birth records. But if you have an idea of the age difference, we have to start pinning it down, looking in the right places, knowing whether you should be looking for somebody before or after, how far after, and also by asking the about locations, like just to simply, where did he tell you where they met? Where were they living? Where was your grandfather living when he met your grandmother? How long do you know how long he had been there? Was she from there? How did she come there? Is that where she grew up? Those type of questions. I know I'm starting to sound repetitive, but it is really, really. I want to say you don't want to waste. You want to make sure you get those answers to, and not be forceful, be casual. Because they already might not be comfortable speaking in front of a camera, or being recorded. If it seems like they're not comfortable with the camera, just ask me, you mind? I'll just put my favorite, and we'll just record the audio and just do an audio recording. And then when you get that information, you have to sort of know what to do with it, where you can start to sift out what's important. And I recommend really to not just do it once. Go through, ask your questions, talk, have the conversation, let it go on as long as they're comfortable. You don't want to start frustrating them, or especially older people sometimes will get tired, or it can be a lot to remember. Just say, don't be afraid to say, you know what, maybe I'll come by in a couple weeks and we can talk more. Maybe you'll remember a little bit more. And then those few questions that you do leave them with, like things that you're looking for, remind them at the end of the conversation. Say, yeah, so Grandpa, I'm going to come back in a couple weeks. Remember, you were going to find out about your Uncle George and what he did during the war. Was he in the Navy or the Army? Whatever that question might be. Or you were going to try to remember what sorry, you're going to try to remember or find out if you could, where your grandparents got married, whatever the questions that you might have, leave them with a few. Don't want to give them a lot of homework, so to speak, or overwhelm them. You want to make it comfortable. You want it to continue to go. I would say always start with the oldest person you can, just because, being blunt, that they're probably the person that you're going to have least opportunity over time to go back to. And then if you're talking to a grandparent or great grandparent, go and talk to their children, your mother, your father, whoever it may be, or your grandmother, your grandfather, your uncles, your aunts. Get some information. Start piecing this stuff together. Things, like I said, to ask about, places. Ask about places they live, where they were born, why they might have moved, what they can remember about their parents and their grandparents, where they lived, how old were they when they moved, when did they meet, how old were they when they met, like it can give you a lot of clues. You want to start to get that together, and you'll start to build out a timeline of places and people and things that happened. And it's going to be a rough timeline at first because there might be some ranges, but it's going to give you that timeline is going to give you like places to look, those key factors. So I kind of rambled on. So I said I was going to talk about a couple of things. That's the first thing. That's really important. It's something that often gets overlooked. It's just simply talking to those relatives that are older and using their knowledge as a resource, but really just engaging them in conversation. They'll love you for it. They really will. Your family members will love talking to you. They're anxious to share. So that the next thing that is often overlooked are photo albums, and this can go hand in hand with you're talking to your relatives. When you talk to them, ask them about photo albums. Take the opportunity to go and look at the through their photos with them. Ask them about the people in it. If you're if you bring your phone, take the opportunity to take the pictures of the pictures. If you can't get them to a scanner, you make sure you save those. Make sure you take notes about them. It can be just simply when you're doing your audio, talk to them about what's in the pictures and then go back and take the actual pictures or copies of them. Ask them about any records. There's all kinds of things that they may have, all kinds of artifacts. Pictures are a great way of helping you with your family tree. I have a good example. There's my great grandmother, my mother's mother's mother. Her maiden name was Catherine McGinnis, and I knew she had a sister named Florence. And that's all I knew, because Catherine was alive in my life. My great grandmother, I met her, and her sister Florence was alive. And I knew they lived in Cape Breton. And I knew her husband's name, but I didn't have anything on her family. Part of the reason was she had a very common name, and so did her sister. In fact, when I'm looking in the time frames, I knew she was born and where she would live. When I looked at Canadian census, I found multiple Catherine McGinnis with a sister named Florence or Flora. So I couldn't narrow it down to who was the one that was my actual great grandmother's family. So it was a brick wall for a long time. The year before my grandmother passed away, which was just over a year ago, my mother and I were cleaning up out of her house. My mom's not big on nostalgia and things, but I was going through and I was trying to rescue all the old photos and stuff I could. And I came across a beautiful line. It's a key to me breaking down that brick wall that was my great grandmother. So I'm going to show you here in 1 second. I'm just going to bring it up once. homelands. So just 1 second here. I'm just going to add this new item here. So you'll see this picture. This is just, it's part of a broken picture. It's not the complete thing. But it has grandfather and Uncle Donald. And this is my grandmother's writing. So I now knew the name of a brother. So that was very, very helpful. So when I started to look at the censuses, I knew one thing. I did know her by this time. I knew her father's name, but again, it was a common name, Charles. So Charles McGinnis. So there was, yes, that was a difference. There was multiple Charles McGinnises that had daughters, Catherine and Florence. But there was only one that also had a son named Donald. So finding this picture allowed me to break through that brick wall. Not to mention, I have a really great picture of my great-great-grandfather and a great-granduncle. He was younger than my great-grandmother. And by looking at this picture, I was guessing his age. I could tell you the rough year that this picture was taken in. But that also helped me when I looked at other pictures that I've also found there because of information that was written on the back. So this is, I'm going to share this now. This is a little different one. Just 1 second. And then I'm going to add, oops, 1 second. This other picture here. Now this here, I'm going to blow it up if I can. So this is the same fellow, Donald McGinnis. And there's my great-grandmother, and there's her sister. I'm not sure who this fellow is. I believe it was, it could be her brother, Johnny, or possibly could be her uncle's, one of his children. But it let me know who this person was because it was not listed. It just had his name. It didn't say his last name, just his first name. So it gave me a little bit of a clue there. So yeah, pictures are worth more than 1,000 words sometimes, because they can really answer those questions by looking at them. I didn't have to talk to my grandmother about the picture. I because she had the facts there. It's important when you get pictures like these, you look on the backs of them, because people were pretty diligent. Pictures were a rare thing, so they tended to a lot of times write details in the back. If you're lucky, um, there's names, and even if you're super lucky, there's a year that the picture was taken, because that will help you sometimes. Sometimes they get a photo and just lists name, and you don't know who's who. By knowing what year the photo was taken and the ages, knowing what year the photo was taken, and you could figure out the ages, or rough ages of the people that are listed, and match them with the right people. Or if there's only a couple people, for instance, in that case, if it would have had her brother listed there, just his name, and I knew that was her brother, but I didn't know when he was born. I could probably take a good guess by knowing when the picture was and how old he looked, or how old my grandmother and her sister looked, and knowing the age differences between them, which again can be questions to ask. So how old were you when your brother? Do you remember when your brother, younger brother Johnny, was brought home from the hospital when or in this case when he was born, because it was born at the St. Bed's house, which was very common. But do you remember how old you were? So that can give you the year. If she says, yeah, I was 5 years old, you know that he's 5 years younger. You can for some reason she can't remember the birth date, especially when you have really common names, like his name was John McKinnon in Cape Breton. If I didn't know his birth date, but I knew that he was 5, I would know the year. So then I would go to, then my next question would be, if she didn't know the date, do you remember what time of year it was? What was there snow? Was it you can narrow it down to the season. And often your relative might do that. They, well, I don't know. Can't remember their exact birth date, but I know they were born in the summer, because I remember coming home, and I was swimming with my friends, and I had to come home, or like I called home early. My father went to looking for me at the lake to find me, so he could take me home so I can meet my new brother. Those type of memories that they might have. So you know when to be looking. If you knew they lived in Cape Breton, you're not going to be looking in anytime after probably early September, or before really mid to late May, if that, depending whether it was ocean swimming or swimming in the lake or river, which is again an important question to ask. Well, where were you swimming? Did you go there often? So those are the type of questions that photos can help lead you to, and answers that they can help you lead you to. So I've talked enough, and as is my custom here, at the end of the podcast, at the end of this live stream, I go to what I like to call Well, this is my question and answer time, so
let's call.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I need to announce it's last call at the bar.
So, what do you say? What do you say for this last call? So just shoot if you have any questions, shoot them in the comments, and I'll try to answer them. And if you don't have any questions, I'm going to wrap this up. So I'm going to say going once, going twice, going 3 times. So I want to thank you for joining me today, and playing us out is one of my favorite bands, O'Reilly and the Patty Hats, and one of my favorite songs.
Things change, farewell, farewell, friend. Things change, farewell, my friend. Farewell, they're not forever. They mean I'll miss you till we meet again. Things change, farewell, things change, farewell, my friend. Things change, farewell, my friend. But farewells, they're not forever.